Hey everybody, Road to Recovery. Going to do another episode today. We're going to keep it interesting. This is going to be a little different, so I ask you to stick with me. I'm going to be doing a reading today from Patrick Carnes' Facing the Shadow, which is a workbook for sex addicts. And if you ever have the opportunity, I would actually recommend getting that. It's a great offset to the 12 steps. So if you happen to be in a 12-step recovery program, certainly you can use Patrick Carnes' own Gentle Path Through the 12 Steps. However, this book in particular does a really deep dive on sexual addiction. So if you happen to be a pornography addict or experiencing other types of sexual addiction, this is probably the workbook for you. And like I said, it is a workbook, so it's going to challenge you in ways you probably haven't been challenged before. In particular, I'm going to be focusing on chapter 7 in this book. And there was a great passage in here talking about arousal templates. I'm not going to detail what an arousal template is. If you're curious, you can go back and read the book. However, I'm going to read a section from this particular chapter, which is an unusual stepping out for this sort of book. It actually digs into Harry Potter. So let's go with it. In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry's parents die while protecting him from the evil wizard Lord Voldemort. Eventually, Harry discovers the Mirror of Erised. As he gazes into the mirror, he sees his parents looking back at him with love and approval. Being able to continue doing this becomes Harry's most ardent wish. He keeps revisiting the mirror and shows it to his friend Ron. When Ron gazes into the mirror, however, he sees himself as successful and stepping out of the shadow of his brothers, his most ardent wish. Albus Dumbledore, dean of the school that Harry and Ron attend, learns that the boys have found the mirror and intervenes. He explains that the mirror reflects the deepest desire. Erised is the reverse of desire. He further tells Ron and Harry that people have literally been captured by the mirror and unable to leave it. The story about the Mirror of Erised illustrates how living in the fantasy falls far short of living in the reality. As the story unfolds, Ron is fundamentally better off creating his achievements. Further, in Harry's case, it is impossible to make up for the wounds of the loss of his parents. To use the words of Carl Jung, this is Harry's legitimate suffering. Harry's loss deepens with his understanding of the world and strengthens his determination to do well. Addiction is sustained when illusion becomes reality. The very fantasy can, however, serve as a vehicle to understanding core issues. Like Harry Potter and the Mirror of Erised, we can lose ourselves in fantasy and miss the core issues of the self that must be addressed. Gazing at the fantasy is like pouring water into a bottomless glass. It never fills. In this way, our addiction is a kind of ally, protecting us from some truth we wish not to face. Most always, addiction's presence means that some unbearable truth resides within. This is also why addictions frequently present themselves in different forms and combinations. If we resolve one addiction, others surface to keep the truth obscured. Thus, cravings are communications that the self is in distress at a deep level. True abstinence will not be achieved until the wounds are addressed. Nor will any amount of abstinence take away the fundamental obsession until the hurt is understood and resolved. If addictive behavior contains unacknowledged anger, fear, or shame, then sex addicts experience their genitals, but not their woundedness. If they have guilt or strengths that are unbearable, the addiction protects the truth about the aspects of the self. Thus, seeking degradation or humiliation may really be all about behavior we have done to others, guilt, or true abilities and aspects of ourself which there is discomfort. I think for me, reading that passage really brought to mind all the work that I do, both in my STEP program and early recovery process, at trying to tease out the reasons why I was engaged in pornography in the first place. And just talking a lot about it, I was in middle school when I was really starting to consume pornography on a regular basis. Back then it was just magazines, so I was trading with my friends. And you're going through adolescence, so you're going through all the growing pains of school, dealing with girls, dealing with other social triggers like bullies, and feeling alone or isolated. So all of those experiences that are potentially negative, some kids learn to deal with it and some kids don't. And for me, I was prone to fantasy, not always straight up pornography, but when I could get access to pornography, I know that I was dipping into that heavily, because when I was engaged in pornography, I was feeling good, and nothing else mattered at the time that I was engaged in pornography. So, if you had a bully, or if you had a bad grade, or you had a rough day at school for whatever reason, man, I could just go home and masturbate and life would be better. And as we know from using pornography, once you start giving way to your own masturbatory behaviors, once you start using pornography as kind of the tool to assist with that, then the tool becomes the preferred method, right? So once you start using pornography, it contributes to your arousal, and you just stop what you were doing before, which is probably just straight up masturbation with closing your eyes and thinking about something. Because it's just easier when you can have the visual stimulus in front of you. The stimulus becomes part of your arousal template. And I certainly know that that was the case with me. So basically, that process of using pornography was my mirror. It was the thing that Harry Potter used to look deep into himself and be able to find his most ardent desire. So, my most ardent desire was, fulfilling sexual fantasy. And that was so powerful that I wanted nothing but that. And I could try to get it as much as I could. And over the years and decades of use, continued use of that helped me become better at being able to deal with life's little problems, but it never fixed anything. So I could still never deal with stress. I could still never deal with depression. I could still never deal with boredom in a healthy manner. Instead, I always leaned on my crutch. And just like what was presented in the reading material, it's like pouring water into a bottomless glass. You can keep pouring and you might feel a little better, but you're never, ever, ever going to fulfill the bottom line problems. All right, this is Road to Recovery. I hope you found this talk today useful. Please consider subscribing. I hope you have a good day and keep working that path to recovery.